Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul, hopefully having an amazing day. I'm sure many of you all have the same question on your mind: what the hell is going on over at Microsoft? Because honestly, there have been a lot of rumours concerning what Microsoft's plans are going forward, not only for the next generation of consoles, but whether they will start porting games to, let's say, the PlayStation 5. Now, despite the fact that there seem to be early reports that Microsoft were considering exiting the hardware market, this doesn't seem to be the case, because there was allegedly a town hall conducted a few days ago, and Phil Spencer told Xbox employees that they will not be exiting the hardware market, but it's still a little unclear whether games are going to be ported to the PlayStation, and also what is the nature of those games being ported. For example, let's say you have an old game that has been released, let's say 2 or 3 years ago, then porting it to the PlayStation 5 might make sense, because it's a little bit like porting a game from the PlayStation 5 to the PC. In other words, it just gets people interested in that IP, and maybe, just maybe, it would cause someone to say, hey, you know what? I've just played Gears 5 on the PS5, and that's just an example. That is not a hint, that is an example. I really want to stress that. I've just played PS5, Gears 5, and now look, there's a new Gears game. Maybe it's going to make them jump onto xCloud, or maybe it's going to, convince them to get a new Xbox or play it on the PC or whatever, when they would not have been interested in that IP to begin with. It's very difficult to know, and until the Thursday podcast by Phil Spencer is hosted, I don't think anyone 100% knows. My gut feeling is that some messaging is still being decided internally. What I will say, however, is that there were rumours that games like Starfield were coming to the PlayStation 5. But now this may be untrue. Nate the Hate was one of the folks who claimed this, but now he's claiming that this is no longer the case, or perhaps his information wasn't correct, and it is not happening. Starfield is not being ported to the PS5. Understand, I'm not throwing Nate under the bus here. He, came out and said, I screwed up. That isn't the case. And honestly, when you're dealing with rumours and information, it's very difficult 100% to verify stuff, because you kind of get told things under the table, but plans can change, information can be wrong, even from the best source. I mean, hell, you guys know that official stuff changes all of the time, let alone with rumours. But the latest one is perhaps even stranger. So Jason Ronald was the lead architect for bringing up the Xbox Series consoles. He's basically the Mark Cerny of the Xbox division, kind of. But now there is a rumour that he is not actually the person responsible for this and his team. Instead, it has now fallen onto the shoulders of the Surface team. Now, Surface is a pretty well-known division, of course, inside of Microsoft. I'm sure a lot of you know what they do and what they create. But this is also contrary to a lot of other rumours. Now, what I will say is I do think it's very likely that there is some type of portable handheld being produced by Microsoft, but this particular rumour seems to indicate that, well, basically Jason's team is not responsible whatsoever, and the entire team, at least according to Nick Baker from Xbox Era, is now, well, everything is basically now on the shoulders of the Surface team. What I'll say, as I alluded to a moment ago, is I do believe that it's very likely that there is a portable device. So back in the FTC days, so last year, and I believe these slides are perhaps 12 to 18 months predating the FTC trial. So that would put it around 18 to 24 months ago, roughly speaking. You can see that cohesive hybrid compute. So that was Q3 CY 2023. And at that time, Microsoft had already decided that they were going AMD. There were some decisions that they were still deciding upon, if you will. One of those is the type of GPU IP exactly. It seemed that they were basing on RDNA 5 and the CPU. At that time, they were deciding between ARM and Zen 6. Now, to my understanding, they actually have settled now on Zen 5 and RDNA 5. That information I am almost positive on. However, that information does seem to be from last year, late last year. I've spoken to multiple people about this, and all I'll say is that Multiple people have told me that AMD does definitely have the contract. It's based on this. However, with IPs, it's a little wishy-washy. And by wishy-washy, I mean that you can have some type of hybrid thing. For example, it could be Zen 5 with some Zen 6 stuff. It could be RDNA 5 with some RDNA 6 stuff. Or perhaps it could be RDNA 5 but with a lot of custom stuff from Microsoft. And they do also mention specifically here that they are customizing and co-designing it with AMD. So basically there's a lot of customization for this hardware. Also notice, however, at the bottom there was a thin OS for consumer, for consumer or handheld devices. And at that point they were targeting under $100. Now, my personal guess is that handheld devices are doing really well at the moment. See the Steam Deck and tons of other systems. So I do wonder whether that's something Microsoft are working upon. I'm trying to verify some stuff at the moment, but frankly, some of the things I'm hearing, I really want to try and get more information before I say anything in public. And secondly, I think we're going to know a lot more anyway when the Thursday podcast rolls around. What I'll tell you guys though is that I think Microsoft, they're certainly going to be in a very interesting position, because I think no matter what they announce, there's a lot of, there's certainly a lot of pressure on Microsoft. And I will also add to this that I think the messaging of Microsoft, and this is a general statement, I don't specifically mean regarding this particular topic, I just think that Microsoft's overall messaging and the way that they conduct themselves honestly needs some work. One of the positives of certain companies, for example Sony or Nvidia, there is a lot of criticism that you could levy on Nvidia, and I'm not saying that Sony are some perfect company either, but I would say in terms of messaging, they really do a much better job of just not talking when they shouldn't talk, and then just let the product actually kind of speak for itself. They are also better at kind of dealing with rumors when necessary, and I think Microsoft are going to be in a very interesting position going forward. With that said, I have a pretty good feeling regarding Microsoft's long-term strategy and vision. I think that they do have some really cool games going forward. I just feel, as I've said in another video just recently regarding the PlayStation 6, from my understanding, the PS6 is definitely coming out at least 1 to 2 years after the next generation Xbox. So what I've heard is that the next generation Xbox is targeting late 2026, possibly 2027. I think 2026 is more likely, but as always with these things, until the console development's a little further along, targets can be missed. With the PS6, I've heard 2028, and I don't think it's going to slip any later than that. I think 2028, given the PS5 Pro, I'm expecting news, let's say summer, early autumn. I think that's when we're going to see like an official announcement from Sony based upon what I'm hearing. Again, development kits, as I said in another video, they are now out to third parties. I think NDAs have been signed, so by third parties I mean the likes of Capcom. So Microsoft, don't have a pro console, to my understanding anyway. They are going straight into the next generation. I think Sony are going to, as I said, release the PS6 in 2028, and I think that it's going to be more powerful. I think that the hardware, and that just makes sense because it's going to release later, so just with how, well, technology moves, I'm hearing that it's going to be a later generation of RDNA. Heard RDNA, let's just say a later generation, and I've also heard it's going to have a later CPU generation as well. So there are definitely a lot of things that a lot of questions going forward for how gaming works, I think, for the next while. Of course, not to mention the fact that just the whole market is in a very interesting state at this point, with a lot of game studios really struggling. A lot of game studios are really struggling in terms of AAA games. Some of them are failing. Smaller indie studios, they're finding it quite difficult to stay afloat in terms of the financing. That's why there's a lot of layoffs at the moment. Basically, in terms of money, it ain't cheap with inflation and like borrowing cash, that cash flow is quite difficult at the moment. But that's a topic for another video, and I'm sure others can probably cover that in better detail than I could anyway, because it's not really my forte. But what I will say to you guys that there's a lot of really interesting products going to be released over the next while. I'm very much looking forward, however, to the Thursday announcement from Microsoft, because quite honestly, I've spoken to so many people under the table, and pretty much all of them are saying that they are essentially waiting for Phil Spencer's announcement. So I do think that some things have simply not been even communicated to a lot of the people, even within Xbox. You can take that as you will. But I will say that, of course, all of this from Sony's perspective is absolutely wonderful. So it's kind of like one of those things where Microsoft are getting a lot of hits in terms of like their PR at the moment from their fans. So I think all stress is on Microsoft. With that said, take care of yourselves, have an amazing day. Bye for now.